Hi, Tejshree. We're live now. Hi, everyone. Tejshree, can you hear me? Testing. Can you hear me? Okay. Do you want to get... Okay, can you hear me? Awesome. Yeah. Great. Hi, welcome everyone to this broadcast from DogSpot.in. We'll be talking about building sustainable welfare. I'd love to introduce Tejshree and the We Exist Foundation. Tejshree, hi, yet again. Tejshree was a practicing arts and antiquities lawyer for over 7 years, when in 2017, she decided that she'll put all of that away and start the We Exist Foundation. She received tons of criticism for this choice, but she boldly sticks to her guns because for her, We Exist is not a choice, but her true calling. The We Exist Foundation aims at improving the lives of street animals and abandoned animals, the entire community of those in India, through its various initiatives. Since 2018, it's been 100% volunteer run. It has been diligently working towards sterilization, vaccination, rescue, and adoption. My gosh, Tejshree, this is just so much work. So why don't you start by telling us what your typical workday looks like?
Hi, Nidhi. That was an amazing introduction. I couldn't have given a better introduction to my work and, of course, to the work of my tiny little charity. So thank you for that. So I think you pretty much said it all. But We Exist and its sister NGO, the We Exist Foundation, is essentially a labor of my, undying love for street dogs and now in general the street animal community. And I think launching two organizations at the same time has been challenging, extremely challenging, and an extremely lonely journey, but it's been so worth it, and I think I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, even on the toughest of days, when there are no sales or when there's a life lost, on the other hand. I wouldn't change it for anything, and I think that's, I'm grateful that I have that sort of conviction in the things that in this work that I'm doing. And you asked me about a typical day. I can't even, so many people ask me, what a typical day in my life looks like. And honestly, it's like strokes of different colors, My day starts super early. It starts at like 6 a.m. in the morning, which is essentially the time that I take out for myself. I carve it out just for myself to do whatever little bit I need to do, whether it's meditate, whether it's workout, whatever I need to do to align my day and prepare myself for the day ahead. And by 9 every day I'm in office. And I think the one thing that's held me in good stead in all this time has been that I have made it a religious practice, a disciplined practice of being at work every single day. And even through COVID, during the phases of lockdown, I was sitting at a desk, by 9 o'clock. And I think that helped me steady my mind, steady my thoughts, steady the work that, both the organizations have been trying to do. And I think just gave me a sense of purpose to my day, or a sense of structure to my day. And it starts with managing things for the business. And I think through the day, there's this, things shift so quickly when it comes to NGO work and SOS calls. So I think what I try and do is manage the chunk of my work during the first half of the day, so that the rest of the day I can actually commit to doing foundation work, which is whether I am myself going to address any SOS call, whether it is going to check up on some dog that we've already rescued and we're taking care of, whether it is in terms of actually meeting with volunteers and sort of brainstorming on what we do next, whether it is answering. We get over 150 messages a day on our Instagram handle. We don't have a huge following, but let me tell you, it's a very it's a very active following, and I appreciate it, because this is the following that actually not only does it consist of volunteers who are working actively on ground, who need the guidance, who need the support emotionally and financially, but it also has it is a following that comprises of donors and well wishers, without whose support I wouldn't be able to do the work that I'm doing. So actually, the rest of the day goes into guiding, into saving, into monitoring, into following up. And I think, when we were having a chat earlier today, I mentioned to you that one of the hardest things is in terms of running an NGO that doesn't have a physical form. We don't have a shelter. But even that doesn't allow me to switch off at all. At no point can you switch off. And I think even if I wanted to switch off, I don't think you can. I don't think I can. So I mean, I'm pretty much answering queries and calls till I actually fall off to sleep.
Wow.
And I think my typical workday actually ends by like 10, 11. So I'm always on the go. You're constantly activated. You're constantly sort of juggling two worlds, where you're trying to be an entrepreneur. You're trying to make sales. You're trying to stay relevant in a very, very competitive pet products industry. And at the same time, you're trying to save lives, and you're trying to support all these wonderful individuals who are working on ground, in doing the work that they're doing. And of course, the biggest thing, which I know we are going to talk a lot about today, is fundraising. That 24/7 hour sort of exercise, 365 days. If there's an extra day in there, even that, it is it's continuous. You know it. You do it as well. So yeah, like I said, different strokes of colors through the day, the blacks and the whites, and then all the colors in between. So yeah, you're just constantly on the go,
So, Tejshree, can you tell us very briefly about your most recent rescue? How much are you trying to raise for them? And I'd like to bring everybody up to speed with the level of commitment this takes and the amount of money this takes, because you're going to talk about one rescue, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting for people to note the amount of money it actually takes to do one rescue. And then I'm going to proceed to ask you how many rescues you've done. So I think people will do their math, but I really, really want you to talk about your most recent rescue and how much is it going to take to rescue this one life.
Sure. So I'm actually going to talk. Well, I'm not going to talk about the most recent rescue, but I'm going to talk about the rescue that actually was one of. Gosh, this is so tough, but I'm going to talk about one of the more challenging rescues, which happened during the lockdown. And also because it is something where we're still on, the fundraising for that dog is still ongoing. But I want to talk about him because his resilience is unbelievable. And I think his story is remarkable. Though each one of my rescues has, oh gosh, they have beautiful stories. And then I'm going to talk about Leon. So he's known as Leon, the brave little lion. Leon was actually reported to me by a wonderful, very hardworking on-ground volunteer and rescuer from the town of Hapur. And Hapur does not have good veterinary care. Most towns and tier 3 cities, etc., do not. I mean, even tier 2 cities, for that matter, do not. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges of anyone who is running a physical space in terms of a not-for-profit, or even who's doing on-ground rescue work, right? So I remember her sharing Leon's videos and images with me. And it was in the middle of the night. And I cannot tell you how heartbreaking those videos and images were. And I knew within seconds that Leon had to come to us. And I think the next morning she had put him in an ambulance, and he traveled from Delhi at that point from Hapur to Noida. Unfortunately, he couldn't cross the border over to Delhi, but I have a very, very good, I have an amazing volunteer, and now my little baby sister, Akanksha, who actually received Leon at the clinic and admitted him, because I couldn't go, at that point. I could only go 2 days later when I could cross the border. Yeah. And Leon was actually found by the reporter in Hapur. He had been found under a tarp and in a construction ground, empty, abandoned, and his entire leg had been ripped in. Why I'm being graphic is to talk, not to be graphic for the sake of being graphic, but to show you the resilience of a young puppy, right? So his leg had been ripped apart. There were over 300 to 400 maggots, or even more, because it took us 3 days to remove
Wow.
those maggots. He had no skin, no muscle, no nothing. He had been burnt all the way here, probably from the fuel or the, I don't know, the silencer of whichever vehicle hit him. And well, he was completely like, he was, I mean, he was in a miserable state. But the
Mhm.
thing is, this dog survived without food, water, or any care for a week under a tarp, right?
Yeah.
And when he came here, I know, like when we started the work on him, when the vet started, we had one vet in Noida, and we had one of the senior most vets in Delhi, Dr. Vivek Arora, supervising his entire treatment protocol.
Wow.
We know what that dog went through, because every day for almost 2.5 months, his dressing was changed, the maggots were removed, the skin grew back. His hair over here will never come back again because it has been burnt. There are no hair follicles. But this boy has been phenomenal. And well, he's been under our care. This is the 4th month now. And the remarkable thing is, so we have spent almost ensuring that all his blood tests are repeated again and again. His boarding is in an amazing place where he is constantly socializing with other dogs. He's getting his confidence back. We're working on the structure of his bone.
Wow.
There's all this work that is going in, and he comes to Delhi almost once a fortnight to get
Wow.
checked up. I go and pick him up. I bring him to Delhi, to Dr. Vivek Arora, so that his follow-ups are regular, and we're monitoring every aspect of his. So I think in just these 3.5 months, we have spent, to give numbers, we've spent about 50 to 60,000 on Leon, just because. I mean, it's a kind of care because now his vaccination protocols are in place. He's completely vaccinated. Today, in fact, he has been released. He was admitted for his sterilization procedure. He's been discharged today. Now, the best part is why I wanted to talk about Leon was that he has been, thanks to this one, again, it takes an army to save a life. Thanks to the wonderful girls behind Pooch Tales and the power duo behind Power Pups, again, two on ground organizations, we've managed to find Leon a phenomenal family in New
Wow.
York.
Congratulations. Oh my God, this is
Right?
wonderful. This is
So here,
wonderful.
right? And here
Yeah.
we have.
Tejshree, I think your internet's frozen a little bit, but I'm going to take this opportunity. Sorry,
Sorry.
you froze up in the middle, I think. So you want to talk about? We lost you when you were talking about finding a wonderful home for him in New York.
Yeah, and he's going to New York. But what I wanted to say was why it is ongoing is because now we have to fundraise to get Leon there. You see, which is another expenditure of its own. So it's ongoing. So a rescue like Leon, by the time we close this entire operation, would probably have cost, like the expense would be somewhere between 150 to 2 lakhs, right?
Wow.
To ensure that he successfully, it's a full cycle. It's not about just fixing the dog and letting it be. It's about completing this, to take this puppy, to actually give this puppy a second chance at life. Um, and like I said, it's his resilience, it's his bravery. We've only supported what he is made of. And I have to say, it takes an army, and I think this is something that we should talk about to everybody who's joining us today, that it is never one person's mission to save a life. I could call myself a one-woman army behind the Weeks Foundation who operates with the support of volunteers, right? And amazing volunteers and amazing teams. But without them, I would not be successful. Leon would not be going where he's going. So I feel like everybody should in this work should stop making it their agenda and me myself and I agenda, but more so let's get together and let's change life. And I think that's something that it resonates with me. I hope that it resonates with other people in this
You're
work.
truly making a connect here. It is resonating. I can see the comments come in. People are extremely inspired by what you're saying. It's extraordinary for sure. Sangeeta, Gaurav, Suraj, and Revanta, thank you for your comments here. Truly, it's people like you who will actually help people like Tejshree to do the stuff that they really need to do. Um, so help me understand, is we exist the only thing you do in a day, or do you actually get time to do anything else other than we exist?
My husband's probably going to, like, if he's tuned in, he's probably going to say that she's an absolutely nutcracker of a girl who barely has time to converse to anybody, including him. And I think my life I'm grateful to him because of his support, and of course my own family's support. Both my husband's family and my family, they've allowed me to make We Exist, the company and the foundation, the NGO, my world and my life, And I think because I've been allowed to do that, because my work is celebrated, I am able to deal with the criticism that I get from certain people in terms of the choices that I have made, and also just to continue doing what I am doing. So yes, to answer your question, We Exist and the foundation is pretty much my life. The only other thing that I do is that I still consult as a lawyer on very specific matters that are to do with.
It's a small thing, it's really not. That's fantastic.
So I still do, because I like you'd mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, I specialize in art and antiquities law, and I was probably one of the first, if not only, lawyers in the country to specialize in this. So now, there are still clients, old and new, who need that sort of advice. So the good thing is that now I can give the advice, and the money that I get from there actually goes into the foundation. So then so the begging becomes a little lesser, the pleases and the thank yous just go down by a notch. But yes, I don't chase it as much as I used to, the work, because it becomes very difficult, to have three things operating with the same passion. So I'd have to say that my work in terms of legal work reduced, but it's still there. And I think the last major project that I took on was to write a book, which is getting published by UNESCO, and on the subject of art law. And then I've closed it because I need to focus on building this world, with We Exist and the foundation. And I also think, I really think everybody's going to abandon me if I those 10 sentences that I probably speak to my family or my husband every day. If I take on more and those 10 sentences go down to one, I think you may have to adopt me. Maybe you may have to find space with the dogs in your space. I think I will need to be put in there.
You will always have space for with all of us, and I don't really want to adopt you. I really mean that the work that you're doing is so inspiring that whatever you need, we're all going to be here for you, and you know it already, right? You've held through so much, and especially during difficult times, right? Let's talk about COVID for just 1 second, right? We talked about how Leon was rescued during COVID, that there were so many logistical issues. All of it takes money, of course. So I'm going to sound a little bit gimmicky, but help me through this. Dawai, dua, daru, and donations. How do you think people prioritize this during a difficult time, especially?
I am just going to say donation goes whoosh at the bottom, right? Okay, I'm going to be fair. Why I'm going to be fair is because I remember it. I mean, it just happened. But as soon as the national lockdown was announced, right, at the end of March, within 12 hours, we had launched something known as the Full Belly Lockdown Initiative, right, for which we basically raised funds to actually provide emergency food rations to about 50 on-ground feeders pan-India during COVID, where we managed to feed, the last time I checked the stats, 8,000 plus animals, which included dogs, cats, monkeys, cattle, and snakes. Um, um, so why I brought this initiative up is because that wouldn't have been a possibility had the donors and the well-wishers not come forward. The speed with which I raised that money, the speed with which we were able to action and support 50 people. At the end of the day, I may say we have so many volunteers on board, but it is one person who's trying to fundraise, at the end of the day. So the speed with which we managed to raise and distribute those funds, I owe it to my donors. I owe it to the well-wishers. So I will say that initially, if you ask me for a fair analysis, beginning of COVID, there was a lot more support in terms of donations. But now, as we've gone into the unlock phase, and this is my perspective, because I'm going to shoot this question at you as well for your thoughts at the end, towards the latter half of this session. I feel that this is the time that the impact of COVID in terms of our economy, on our economy, has actually started coming to light. And the next 1 year, I believe, at least till like probably March, April, May next year, is going to be tough. There are people who've lost their jobs. There are people whose salaries have been cut. The biggest of titans have shut down, and small businesses are struggling. So what happens? The disposable income that individuals had, if it was 10, has now come down to 5 or 0. And that's the little pie that is left for people to donate to us from, right? And there's so many different causes right now. We've had frontline warriors, we have, the migrant workers, we have children, we have animals. So what's happened is that COVID isn't just about 1 week, 1 month, 2 months. It seems to be here to, stay for at least some time till the vaccination is found, and its impact is going to be sort of lengthy. That does have an impact on donations. I still see people come forward. I still see people chip in. I'm not saying that they don't. They're the only ones who hold me in good stead. But yes, the numbers have reduced. The recurrence of donations have reduced. And I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of people working on ground, a lot of young volunteers working on ground, who I try and communicate and talk to and check up on. And I think everybody's struggling with this constant problem, which is lack of funds. They all have the heart, they have the will, they have the courage to battle any RWA, anybody. They don't care. Sun, rain, thunder, they don't care. But I think the biggest challenge is the monies, and honestly, post this lockdown, I feel like the impact is showing through, and it is taking a hit on donations. But yes, Daru is still number one. Somehow.
The wine these days, the wine probably a little bit more than Daru, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, maybe. Though that happens, I feel like it may be just at par. Like I'm not even.
I completely agree with that, though. So, given this whole context of how donations are probably going to be on the chopping block as soon as constraints or different times come through, even on an individual level, the minute there is a constraint, the first thing you do is cut off a donation, not because you're a bad person, but because genuinely you need to prioritize for your own survival and well-being, right? You mentioned We Exist and We Exist Foundation differently, Tejshree.
Yes.
So is We Exist a business or is it a charity?
So how I like to mostly explain to people, the We Exist Foundation is a registered not-for-profit, and it is also ATG tax exempt, and which is a marvelous feat for such a young organization, because we got the exemption within 2 years. And I feel the foundation is what gave birth to the idea of We Exist, which is my pet products company. It is completely homegrown, local, nothing gets imported. It's all here, it's all designed here, it's small batch. And a lot of hard work goes into it, because suddenly a lawyer has to put on this cap of designing and figuring, the various facets of e-commerce and distribution and marketing out all by herself. But yes, just to put it simply, the foundation gave birth to We Exist. They both share their birthdays. They were both launched on the same day, and we completed 2 years earlier this month. But I don't say that my brand gave birth to the foundation. My foundation gave birth to my brand, simply
Right.
because I knew that I needed to sustain my foundation. And while I have no qualms, no ego, and no lack of gratitude for the people who help us out on an almost daily basis with donations, I also wanted to figure out a way to sustain it, you know? And that's when the brand came about, and as an idea, as a concept. And I wanted it to be a luxury brand, which is what it is. It
Hmm.
isn't your run of the mill. Let's
Sure.
just go to the, let's go to the community market and just pick up a collar and leash. It's not that. So it is not a very massy brand. It isn't. And that was never my endeavor either. But yeah, so in short, We Exist tries to support the foundation, because from each sale, we put in a fixed percentage of the money from every sale, every product into the foundation. So now, whether that's 10 rupees from that product, or 50 or 100 or 200 or 250 or 500, it does go in there. And eventually, it does add up. It may not add up immediately, but it does eventually. So it has been challenging to make sure that I can sustain this model. I I don't know if I would. I don't think it's everybody. It would be up to everybody's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's hard, let's just say, to run a brand that has to sustain a foundation. It is, and I won't advocate for it. I did it because I needed my brand to have a purpose.
Sure.
I wanted it to have meaning. It stands for some. We Exist stands for, has a very, very deep meaning itself.
Yeah.
So obviously our products also had to amount to something. They had to have a voice of their own, and they became the voice actually of the foundation. Um, so it's yes. So they're two different organizations completely, but they go hand in hand.
Very nice. So legally speaking, since you are a lawyer, how does the corporate commit to charity? Is it part of the articles? Do you actually make it a mandate at the PN at the profit level or at the revenue level? How do you incorporate this?
So obviously, I mean, in all our documentation of incorporation, because you have to submit your mandate, and you have to, like you said, you have to state how much you're committing to the foundation, etc. Everything is very clearly documented, right? Everything is committed, and of course, there are certain provisions that we have kept in place to safeguard that if at any point we are running into losses and we are unable to commit those funds to the foundation, you have to have the business sense to protect the company. You can't have one going down in order to make the other sustain. So you have to have provisions in place that safeguard um, both organizations, and in this case, in this situation, the company, right? And it was my decision to state that the percentage of sale proceeds will not go from profits; they will go from every sale. So
Okay.
most companies that, well, in India, I think we're probably one of the only brands that function like this in this space. But I could be wrong. But most companies who follow this sort of model, they mostly commit a percentage of proceeds from their profits, right?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
and in our case, it's not that. I honestly believe, Nidhi, that whether it is 5 rupees going, or like I said, 100 rupees going, or 500 rupees going, or 1,000, it's the same rule I apply to donations that I apply to the percentage as well. It will add up. I would
Hmm.
rather get that 100 rupees or that 1,000 rupees than not get anything at all.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that.
It's absolutely, it's well understood, right? I mean, I think each rupee has its own way, and no donation is too small, right? So from that point of view, making sure that it's on sale versus profit, while it increases the pressure on you as a businesswoman to ensure that you make sales and profit, Unlike most corporates, it's not attributed to the profit the organization makes. It's a burden that every unit, and therefore is probably even built into your unit economics, right? It's a burden that every unit will bear on the business side to ensure sustainability on the other side.
Absolutely. And like what you just said, I was just thinking that every time a product of ours gets damaged, or every time it is rejected by a customer for whatever reasons, right? It could also be a defect from our side. Every time it is damaged, recently our warehouse got flooded. And I remember like sitting on the floor and actually crying because every item that got damaged, and honestly, I'm the person who's packing everything, I'm supervising, I have team members who help with all of that. But I was the one who was sitting on the floor and crying because I knew that every product that had gotten damaged, not only did it mean that I have to write it off in my inventory, but it also meant that it had it gotten sold, my foundation would have gotten some money.
Yeah.
It's a loss on both sides. It's a loss on potential sale. It's a donation lost. And I mean, even if it was 400 rupees, I could have got a puppy vaccinated with that, saved them against parvo. I could have done anything. So I think the burden, the pressure is a whole lot more. And being a single woman army behind both the organizations, who's never run a business, never run an NGO before, I think it becomes challenging. I wish I could say that I have this, I have a knack of entrepreneurship. I don't. I'm so honest when I say it. I don't, but I'm learning. And even when I was sitting and crying, that breakdown in the middle of the warehouse,
Yeah, I can
all I
understand
thought
that.
was, oh my God, how do I fix this? And how do I make sure this doesn't happen again? How do I fix this so that it doesn't happen again? Instead of being like, oh, this is the end and I'm not going to do this again. And even COVID, it has been a disastrous impact on the business. But I'm here. I'm standing strong. I'm trying. And for what it's worth, at least I'm giving it a shot,
Absolutely. As you must, right? It's people like you who actually show us that donation doesn't have to be on the chopping block, that good efforts, humanitarian efforts don't have to be on the chopping block when times like COVID are here, right? So let me quickly ask you, and then we'll talk about trade-offs because we talked about that when we were speaking behind the scene as well. What percentage of your foundation is actually financed by your business?
Oh gosh, Nidhi, this is such a tough one because I won't be able to give you stats.
So this is donations. Donations are still pretty significant, and the business is inching its way.
Like even right now, see, you have to understand it's a small business, right? We're only both the foundation and the business and the company are only 2 years old, right? A gestation period in my head for such an ambitious project that I've taken on in my head was always 5 years, right? So while we're still growing and we're still developing sort of putting a brand value, sort of creating a brand identity for the business, sort of getting people to understand why our products are priced the way they are, what they stand for, etc. I would say that right now we still rely very heavily on donations vis-a-vis relying on the sales. That having been said, I don't think I would manage without. I would need both to sustain.
Yeah,
even right now, even if I was to say that we rely more on the donations and our fundraising and endeavors and initiatives, I would not negate what role the company and the sale of the products have in ensuring that our initiatives are successful. Like I said, just one sort of component of the proceeds from the company can actually be a tipping point in terms of helping a goal that we had for an initiative to become bigger. It could easily be 200 dogs sterilized to 250 dogs sterilized just because of that. But at the moment, more heavily reliant on donations.
Okay. So let's move and talk about trade-offs. Even within donations, or let's say that Samaritan effort, you are always expected to make trade-offs, right? Trade-off between what your passion demands of you and what is financially sustainable, right? So how do you make that decision? It's a very tough one, because it's, brain versus heart in many aspects, but a lot of time your heart is enabled by some of what you do with your brain. So, help us understand, how do you trade off between your passion, your calling, and your financial sustainability?
Oh gosh, I think this would be a struggle and a tug of war for probably majority of the people who've joined us today. And well, I know for you too. Um, it's hard, it's really hard. This constant tug of war, which is between, like you said, your head and your heart, right? It's a constant thing, where I have to juggle the finances and see what our financial, capability is at the moment, in terms of actually being able to help out or run initiatives or support young volunteers who work with the organization who are reaching out for help. I won't say, I'm going to be honest and say 50% of the time my head wins, my brain wins, and 50% of the time my heart does. There are some cases or some instances where I cannot say no. I just cannot. So I think what I have tried to like structure for myself, or at least in terms of validating when my heart gives in when it shouldn't, is that everything that we do, all the initiatives that we run under we have 7 programs, but there are 5 active programs that require funds. Um, it's all structured. So what I prefer to do is that all goals are structured, all numbers are locked in, the amount of money that is required is locked in, and it is fundraised beforehand, before launching the initiative. Barring rescue work. Rescue work, no, because there's no saying. Obviously, there's always a kitty in place, but I'm constantly fundraising, because the idea is that even if we have demarcated certain funds or allotted certain funds to certain initiatives, you can't just be like, okay, we're getting 100 dogs sterilized, the funds are going there, and then not have a solution to sort of replenish those funds. You need to. So it has to be constant, right? So I think, yeah, one of the good things that's helped me is having goals, having structured initiatives. And I think because I've managed to compartmentalize and be structured about all of that, I have been able to allow my heart to take decisions about certain cases, where I don't care about the funds. I will make the funds happen, and I can give in, I just give in. But the thing is, I mean, I've said this to so many younger like volunteers, people who've just gotten into rescue work. You cannot always depend on others to come to your rescue. You need to have funds in your kitty. You need to have emergency funds in your kitty. You cannot blame, I think is something that I've been seeing, and I've been trying to talk to a lot of people about it. You can't put it on the audience or your well-wishers or your donors or your supporters for not coming and seeing you through in terms of finances. You can't. It's not fair. You are the person who's running an NGO. You are the person who's doing rescue work. You have to figure out ways of ensuring that your kitty has reserve funds in it for anything for every instance where your heart takes over your mind. I think that's really important. And yes, of course, if you're going to reach out and have one massive fundraiser, you see the world will come to your rescue. Of course, if your work speaks for itself, yes, it will. But if you expect them to come to your rescue every single time, and you want to raise 1 lakh of rupees, 2 lakhs of rupees, or 50,000 rupees, or whatever number, whatever significant number every fortnight, no, people cannot come through for you. It's just not possible. So yeah, I don't know if I think that's a sort of roundabout answer to what you asked, but I'm hoping that it
what we are hearing you say, really, Tejshree, is that you must have budgets, that you must stick to those budgets. Of
Yeah.
course, there is emergency work, which is the rescue work you do, where it is impossible to have a budget. But then, of course, you will be picky about what you bring into your rescue effort or not, depending on how badly it is required, or whether it is, people cannot be just dumping rescue work on you, right? Because you
Exactly.
can take a pick of what works and what doesn't work
Yeah.
in terms of rescue and that boundary that you're setting, right? I'm hearing
Yeah.
quality over quantity in that sense, right? I'm also hearing you say that empathy can actually coexist with basic business sense. And I
Yeah.
want to drive from that point because almost every time, people almost feel like business is a very opportunistic thing to do, and
Yeah.
that social cannot be plugged in with business. I think you're an epitome of that concept, that very, very rare concept where business is existing with a heart, where empathy is coexisting with basic business sense. So kudos to all the work that you've done, Tejshree, and may you stay blessed. May you stay super successful in what you're doing. Really, I'm very, very proud of what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Nidhi. And I mean, thank you for allowing me to speak from my heart and so openly. And now I'm actually going to shift the attention to you.
If you
um,
must.
so I'm going to flip this around, and I am actually going to, I don't know how many, unfortunately, I can't see how many people have joined us, but thank you to everybody who has. And now I'm just going to shift the attention to Nidhi. Nidhi and her partner, Amit, they founded Just for Love, gosh, in October 2019, was it?
Yes.
Yes. So it was founded by both of them, and it was it was the social responsibility a project of Equus Farm, which is basically, Nidhi, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a horse riding school. It's an
Correct.
equestrian school, correct?
Right.
So it is actually this. I'm going to call it the CS. I'm going to call Just for Love the CSR arm of Equus Farm. And again, this is an example of how there's a business with a heart. So Equus Farm actually supports, Anidhi, please feel free to correct me. Equus Farms is what supports the functioning of Just for Love. And Just for Love is this amazing little space that exists in Gurgaon, correct, Nidhi?
That's right.
And where they are taking care of multiple rescues. Who I've seen a few pictures and videos, and they just look absolutely happy, super happy. And I think, as per what I know, since 2019, they have rescued 7 horses, 25 dogs, 5 cats, and a couple of cows. Am I correct?
That's true. Absolutely right. Yeah.
That's like
This
a
is
whole
the
variety.
amount of work. Yes.
Yeah. You've not left anything. I think we just need some monkeys to be thrown in there. Who test
Dogs, monkeys, you bring them in. No,
bring
I'm
them in.
there's a science behind all of this. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
essentially, Just for Love is looking at ensuring that proper care is given to all these wonderful, wonderful animals who have found, shelter in and love in the work that they do. And well, I'm just going to tell you a little bit, because Nidhi is not going, it's not very good at talking about herself, but Nidhi has actually been credited with helping set up a Fortune 100 space and missiles business in India, and Airtel's first mobile commerce initiative in 2004. And oh gosh, in 2014, she actually set up a branded apparel venture, which was funded by, I think everybody in animal welfare absolutely dotes on him, but it was funded by Mr. Ratan Tata himself. Maybe I have no words. And she's now the head of new initiatives at Times Internet, where she turns around digital consumer business. And to close this, she's also been named as India's top 35 business women by Business World, CNBC's Young Turk. I mean, this is just, it's too much. And of course, she's also been a TEDx speaker. I mean, she was talking about me managing a lot of stuff. And having a lot to do. Nidhi, I have no idea how you have managed to do so much in such a short span of time. It's just remarkable. And I'm actually going to ask you the same question that you asked me, just a little bit about how you manage, to juggle, well, your work, and then, all this time that you give for Just for Love. And also, if you could, like, explain to everybody who's joined us a little bit about, I don't know if the relationship between Equus Farms and Just for Love is different from We Exist and the We Exist Foundation, but if you could just shed some light, if at all there are any similarities or differences.
Sure. So you're right. I think Equus Farm came about, and then Just for Love sort of came about because Equus Farm saw itself in a very unique position to provide infrastructure. When you
Sure.
pull together an equestrian athletics school, you have to have, really large land for the arena, for the stables, and whatever else. And then at the end of the day, pulling together extremely empathetic people, right? People who understand animals. And then if you chance upon a sick puppy after that, or a sick cat, or any living thing that really needs rescue or shelter, you can't say no to it because you've pulled together and people who are empathetic towards animals and this infrastructure. So Just for
Yeah.
Love and Equus Farm stand separate, unlike We Exist. But yes, one has definitely facilitated and led to the, let's say, guts to have Just for Love, right? In addition to the fact that I have a full-time job, which then, of course, keeps me busy at that job. And so this ecosystem lends help
Yeah.
to Just for Love.
And just to sort of give a idea to everybody who's listening into us, will you just explain a little bit about Just for Love and how you, the space, essentially the space, the physical space that you have, and how do you is there a sort of a selection, like, do you select which cases to take on and bring in? Because I know a lot of people after this, now that they may, if they didn't already know of the space, and now they do, they will probably reach out to you every time there is a rescue. So I would like them to also understand if there are any parameters for when you take in cases, in what conditions you take in cases, and also the type of animals that you keep. Because I know primarily it's dogs, but I think it would be great for the audience to sort of understand, because there's always, I think the one thing that most rescuers struggle with is finding a safe environment to keep their rescues, especially when it's senior dogs or dogs who are maybe paraplegic, paralyzed, etc., whose chances of finding homes thereafter or going back into the streets is just not a possibility. So I think it would be great if you could, just, and even for me to know.
Yeah. No, so we don't do active rescue work, which is what you do, right? Which is rush to
Yeah.
a situation which needs rescue. What we help do is rehabilitate and shelter. So let's talk about Luna. She's a paraplegic Rottweiler. She's found home with us because obviously, despite being a breed, she's not going to find a home very easily, right? May she find one, but in that interim or even forever, she can stay with us, right? For example, there is this other tripod, right? She's lost one leg. Bijli, she's lost a leg in a road accident. She's come to us. There are dogs that are completely incapable, indies that are completely incapable of living on the street, like our little Mirchi. She keeps getting hurt. She had acid burns, a road accident. So we sort of took her in, and she's got a permanent home with us. On the other hand, what we do is we do a lot of rehabilitation for horses.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So we have 3 horses right now who cannot be put to school use, right?
Yeah.
But they're also not horses that we're just going to let go. We are
Yeah.
committed to delivering them a very, very good quality life. And then
Mm-hmm.
Amit, being a national equestrian athlete, actually
Yeah.
very continuously rehabilitates racecourse horses into having full athletic careers as jumping horses. So I think we're very interesting and different in that sense. We're not a
Yeah.
normal rescue agency. We
Yeah.
do a lot of rehabilitation work, all thanks to Amit and his passion for Equus Farm. And we do a lot of the operations for shelter and rehabilitating dogs that would otherwise not find a home. Luna, I talked about. Chotu's another indie who doesn't have his front legs. He was also brought to us by a very, very dear rescuer who's in Noida, who
Okay.
thought it was a great idea for Chotu to have, what it would be a normal life for him, on a farm like ours.
Fair enough. And I mean, what I'm hearing is that majority of your rescues are all special needs. I mean, from whatever little, they're all special need dogs, and that just means round the clock care into 100. You know, I'm in awe, because that's not only do you need a very committed team to be able to actually take care,
Yeah.
and also in terms of the funds. So whereas my two things are my brain's just taking in that direction. You need a very compassionate team, extremely compassionate. Even if it's two people, three people, helping out, you need a very dedicated team. And secondly, you need a lot of funds to be able to support the special needs of these dogs, whether it's in terms of rehab, whether it's in terms of medicinal care.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to sort of figure out that, Equus Farms is supporting, obviously, through all the classes, etc. that Mit runs, etc. You're you're supporting the efforts, but do you also rely heavily on donations?
Yes, we do. We take in donations, but very mindfully. So we've committed, like you said, right? There has to be a cause and there has to be a budget with which you
Yeah,
take in donations, because this is a responsibility at the end of the day. So
absolutely.
we are looking to get in donations. We're trying to extend the facility and boundary it. So all the dogs sort of move into this other new facility, which has a boundary wall around it and an infrastructure like a room, a medical room, and so on and so forth. And we're trying
Okay.
to commit ourselves to 5 more horses to be rehabilitated in the next 1 year. And all of that definitely needs funds, right? We're trying to raise for that.
Okay.
But you're right. I think the most critical part is the empathetic staff and the absolute army of veterinary care, right? I have three very, very dear vets who support us no matter where they are, no matter the time of day.
Oh, that's
One is, yeah, I mean, they're super special. I think of the 25 dogs we have today, 17 of them are alive because Dr. Sonia actually dedicatedly followed up with them with parvo treatment. All of these are parvo survivors, by the way.
super.
Whether it's neutering, whether it's vaccination, whether it's emergencies at night, Dr. Sumit, Dr. Mitra, they've just been fantastic about visiting us and making sure that they're available for us. And then, much like you said, it takes an army of empathetic people.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, our caregivers, our dog nannies, they're learning as they go through the job, because
yeah, of
this is
course.
only set up in October last year. But
Yeah.
truly, without Amit and his coterie of grooms and the dog nannies, it would just be impossible to sustain this effort any which way.
No, absolutely. Just thinking about, I honestly, and I think you also mentioned that, is it Amit who actually goes in early morning every day to do his rounds over there? I feel like you mentioned that he's.
He lives there, right? That's home for us. We live there, and therefore, this is not a shelter where you would put animals in the cage. We are a free range.
free
Uh,
free free roaming.
yes, yes. So, of course, the horses need to be in stables, and
Yeah.
these separate cases are in stables. But the 25 dogs are pretty much free to run wherever they want, and which is why we want to sort of separate the two things, because
Okay.
the horses need to be horses and the dogs need to be dogs, right? So they need to be in their own compound, for which we're trying to sort of pull together the resources to offer.
I'm sure I'm sure that that itself is quite an ambitious sort of, sort of fundraiser that you've probably put together. I know that Saloni, I know the DogSpot team has put the link there as well for if people would like to support. But um, kudos, because it's not easy. I feel like the minute, anyways, with small animals, small and mid-sized animals, there's so many challenges. And here you have special needs small animals, and then you also have horses, which go into the large size category. I think it's just remarkable what you're doing, and I feel like it's great to know of a space that is driven again, by a company,
Yeah.
or an endeavor that is for profit, but has heart to be able to create space, physically, and also in terms of, well, compassion,
Yeah.
to saving lives, or just taking care of them. And I think that's great. I think what I've also just, as probably one of my last few questions, unless you have anything that you'd specifically like to share with the audience, um, I I just I mean, how, I mean, I know that you said that you have targeted like goals in terms of fundraising, etc. But do you also, and I know that you're running this, this sort of fundraiser to get the funds together for your expansion goals. But do people actually, I mean, same thing what you asked me, are people still coming forward during this very, unprecedented time to donate, or no, in your opinion? It's exactly what you asked me. And that was my thought process, lockdown and unlocked phase. Have you seen a change?
See, we're only 10 months old, so our dependence on donations is only developing, right? I mean, we don't have
Yeah.
so many people. But the few that we had, we actually, and I understand why, they had to actually withdraw their support, and it has not come back. But that,
Yeah.
but just given that, there is my job, my full-time job, and Amit's full-time job, we sort of do this out of funds we receive from there. And we're not so dependent on donations right now, but like we're saying, right, for the facility to come up, we do need a chunk of money which cannot come
Yeah.
out of our full-time businesses just yet, or our full-time roles just as yet.
Fair enough. And I think I think it is fair to separate the two, the two sources of sustaining anything that's not for profit. There's only
Yeah.
X amount you can dip into your own sort of personal kitty, somewhere there has to be like a line that has to be drawn. And I think, well, I wish you success with this fundraiser that you've put together to actually expand the work that you're doing. And I think it's remarkable that you're taking in cases that I think 90% of the people wouldn't. And it's not about not taking them in, but it's also in terms of giving them the proper care that they require. Because in most spaces, they wither away, for different reasons. And I'm so glad that at least the lot that's with you is, well, they're being loved and they're being cared for, and they know that they have a reason to be alive. And I think that's phenomenal. Kudos to you, to Amit and the team that's working there.
Thank you so much. I think they give more than they get. So there is newfound, our emotional banks are forever getting filled by the love they grant right back to us. And there's immense gratitude just for that. So really, really appreciate
Absolutely.
your appreciation of that too. Yeah.
No, that's great. So, do we have any questions that anybody asked that you think you want to take up, or anything else that we need to discuss that you feel?
I think I'd just like to say, Tejshree, you've received a bunch, we've received a bunch of, applause for the kind of work that you're doing, and, really, really happy that it's come our way. We're hoping with this that, we're able to project the fact that businesses can coexist with social welfare initiatives, and the
Absolutely.
fact that, and the fact that, it takes a community to do what we're doing. So, it takes a good leader to do what you're doing, Tejshree. And, with
And the
that,
same, I mean, I throw it right back at you and Amit. Really, I really,
thank you.
really do. I really, it's reciprocated into 100 back at you. And I feel like it takes a person from the same sort of space to understand the difficulties, the challenges, and the wins. That another fellow rescuer or somebody in the same kind of line of work is going through. So everything that you say for me, I say it right back at you.
Thank you so much. It's been so wonderful having this conversation with you. Really appreciate DogSpot for pulling us together into this.
Absolutely. To
Really
DogSpot.
looking forward.
Maybe.
Yes, and thank you so much. And we'll stay in touch, of course. I mean, we have tons to talk about anyway, but I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank the people who tuned in. We had close to 200, 300 people viewing us. So really, really happy for that. If there are any questions, Tejshree and I are absolutely happy to round back with you. We are both available on our Instagram handles as well. You can just look us up by We Exist or Just for Love. Either ways, you'll find us. So yeah, looking forward to staying in touch with those who truly feel passionately about this cause, and looking forward to doing more with you too, Tejshree.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nidhi, and thank you again. I'm just going to say what Nidhi said. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in. We're always available to answer any questions, guide you through anything. Nidhi is available. I'm available. And yeah, just thank you. I think thank you to every. I know I'm going to resonate. I know this will resonate with Nidhi as well. Thank you to every volunteer who's been a part of our journey. Thank you to every vet who has supported our journey. Thank you to every single well-wisher and donor. Honestly, it takes an army. This is not just about Nidhi or me or Amit. This is truly about all of us coming together. And yes, I hope that we can continue to make a positive impact in the lives of our street animal community together. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Great. Signing off now. Tejshree,
Yeah.
talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.